Hello there.
Thank you for clicking on this video. It means a lot. Today I want to talk about Perrin, and specifically why Amazon treating him like shit was both disrespectful and unacceptable. Fair warning, this is going to be a fairly in-depth video, so I'm going to be breaking it into several parts, of which this is the first. Now, there are literally thousands of reasons to dislike Amazon Prime's Wheel of Time show. You can find them listed chronologically in order in our rewatch series. See the link on the screen. It may shock some of you who watch this channel to find out that I really like the Wheel of Time book series.
No way!
Now, I could bitch for hours about how this show missed every single aspect of Perrin's character that made him who he is. But because nobody wants to watch a 37-hour video, I'm going to restrain myself to simply 5. I should note here that in order to avoid confusion between Book Perrin and Show Perrin, in this video Book Perrin will be referred to simply as Perrin. It is a good strong name for a good strong character. In contrast, Show Perrin will be referred to as Perrin, because it fully captures the slack-jawed stupidity of the character, reminiscent of Hodor in Game of Thrones with the same glassy-eyed vacant stare and open-mouthed retardation.
Hold on!
The first reason that I, along with many others, really liked Perrin is that he was a big, strong, powerful guy with a kind protector's heart. He didn't want to hurt anybody, and his immense size and strength meant that he had to be cautious in everything he had to do. I found this to be both admirable and relatable. It's a situation that I think a lot of young men find themselves in at one point in their life or another, and it's an aspect that Robert Jordan took from his own life. He once wrote,
Perrin is the side of me who knew I was bigger than kids of my own age. I did not have to fight with any single person. There were some times where kids of my own age decided since I was too big to fight one-on-one, it was quite all right to come at me with 5 or 6 together. But the only fights I had one-on-one until I got into the Army were with kids who were 3 to 6 years older than I was, because I was going to hurt the other guys. I was afraid of hurting kids my own. I would walk away from a fight with a kid of my own age because I was bigger than he was going to hurt him. There was that out of me in Perrin.
I had similar experiences as a youth, and seeing those same mannerisms depicted on the page in such an honest and accurate way made me really like Perrin. It's consistent character through line that informs every aspect of the story. However, the thing about this particular type of trepidation in literature, from Frankenstein's monster to the Iron Giant, is that there's almost always a payoff. The advantage to being big and strong and powerful is that when you are forced into action, you are uniquely capable of handling a situation with explosive violence because of your God-given gifts. And it's awesome when a normally peaceful big dude is finally allowed to unleash hell on a deserving target. Even Amazon agrees, because they distribute Reacher, which is just Thad Castle running around small-town Georgia beating various criminals to death with his bare hands. And despite having a budget of $74 and 2 Camel Menthol cigarettes, Reacher was still more watched than Wheel of Prime because toxic masculinity makes for awesome television.
But we're getting off the subject.
Perrin is a wonderful portrayal of both the trepidation of holding yourself back and the catharsis of being allowed to fully and freely exercise that God-given gift for violence. He's a wonderful character. Perrin, on the other hand, portrays neither the innate careful trepidation, nor does he portray the unique gift for violence which his physical gifts supposedly provide him. As a point of fact, Perrin portrays the exact opposite. Given the opportunity to demonstrate the careful aspect of Perrin's nature, Perrin instead accidentally puts an axe through his pregnant wife's uterus and kills both her and his unborn child. He does this because Perrin is the sort of moron who would accidentally pet a rabbit to death. Look at this garbage. How the hell did he accidentally manage to do a 270-degree swing from his knees and still strike her squarely in the belly?
Man, that's retard strength if I've ever seen it, you know what I mean?
Now one might try and argue, yeah, they fucked up his careful nature, but at least he killed the Trolloc and showed off his awesome capacity for violence, right?
Wrong!
That got fucked up too, because Layla also killed a Trolloc, and did so more quickly and with less difficulty than Perrin. That's why she was able to stand over him, waiting to get axed in the gut. Perrin is not an extremely physically gifted man, capable of great violence if pushed to it. Perrin is a worse fighter than his wife.
Oh, there's a big surprise! That's an incredible... I think I'm gonna have a heart attack and die from that surprise!
Given another attempt to let Perrin show off that capacity for violence in the White Cloak tent, it doesn't happen. Egwene saves Perrin, Egwene saves herself, Egwene stabs Valda. What kind of dogshit fourth-wave feminist nonsense production has a protagonist get tortured and then gives the retribution to another character? And that isn't an anomaly. Throughout the rest of the season, Perrin does not commit one more violent action, either in defense of his friends or to avenge his wife. Perrin himself summarizes my feelings about this character perfectly when he says,
Bullshit! All of it!
Welcome to the party, pal!
Now defenders of the show will say stupid things like,
Alex, you just don't understand. This is part of a character arc. I'm sure he'll be badass in the next season.
Fuck you.
Thank you, Mrs. Strawman. Even if that is true, and it's definitely not, the damage has already been done. His character has been established. Perrin is not just a fucking loser. Perrin is now established as a clumsy moron, a shit fighter, and a complete wuss. And even if all of that is miraculously reversed, which again, it will not be, he's already been irreparably damaged in so many other ways that it doesn't matter. So what possibly could have motivated this atrocity of a scene? Luckily, we have a unique look into the mind of the brainlet who wrote it. In a Reddit AMA, he answered a question about it.
Whose idea was it to have Perrin be married in the first episode? I think the choice was a smart one, but I'm curious as to how the decision came about. Well, firstly, in the longer version of the script, I'd had Perrin being the apprentice to the town blacksmith, who we then accidentally killed during the Trolloc attack. It really was important to me that he had an iconic moment of violence in the first episode that would underpin his long-term journey with violence, and whether he'd choose the axe or the hammer. So I made that blacksmith his mom. But as we had to trim a bunch of page length down in the script, it became a simpler story to tell it as his wife. It also felt natural that if these characters were in their early 20s in a small mountain village, that one of them would be married.
The answer Judkins provides brings us neatly along to the second thing that I really enjoyed about Perrin, that being his relationship with violence as illustrated by his struggle between the axe and the hammer. For reasons that will forever remain a mystery to me, outside of the Egwene-centered love triangle, Amazon gutted everything to do with Perrin that wasn't centered around the hammer and the axe. While I think that does a tremendous disservice to the character, I might be able to choke it down, except...
Oh, there's just one small problem, and it's a big one.
That being, of course, that the production staff completely misinterpreted the hammer and the axe metaphor.
You done messed up, Aaron!
The metaphor isn't about a choice between a willingness to do violence and absolute pacifism like Amazon would have you believe. That's simple, surface-level, idiotic, and utterly unrealistic considering the situations that both Perrin and Robert Jordan found themselves. The metaphor was about the choice between being a slave to your violent, animalistic, instinctive urges, and being capable of making informed and rational decisions regarding when violence needs to be implemented to accomplish your mission and protect others. That's why the choices were between a war axe, something that is only good for violence and for killing, and a hammer, something that can be useful in times of peace and in times of violence. If the metaphor had been about absolute pacifism, the implement of choice would have been about something utterly incapable of violence, like a horseplow or a fishing net. While the dangers of going fully animalistic murderer may seem like an absurd idea to Rafe Judkins and the writing team as a whole, while nestled up in their snuggies and their cozy apartments in 21st century Los Angeles, it's important to remember the world that Robert Jordan experienced. From early 1968 to late 1970, Robert Jordan served 2 tours of duty as a helicopter gunner in the Vietnam War. Many of those experiences made it into the Wheel of Time series, from Rand's experiences desperately running through the woods at winter night knowing that if he stopped, he and his father were dead, to Rand's crippling guilt about killing women, the later stemming from Jordan's personal guilt about killing a woman combatant. The man who wrote these books had seen wild and traumatizing events. For years he lived through and participated in events so brutal and savage that today's writers, coddled and protected as they are incapable of even contemplating them. The Vietnam War was a time of absolute barbarism that both sides participated in. You can look through the records of how American POWs were treated by the North Vietnamese for an eye-opening and stomach-turning idea. But there's one particular event that demonstrates the ability of human beings to fully turn to animal barbarianism. On March 1968, the My Lai massacre occurred. I will not describe it in detail here, as it is a truly nauseating thing to read about it, but I'll leave a link in the description if anyone is curious. While Robert Jordan did not take part in the My Lai massacre, or anything similar, he was in country when it happened, and it would have been impossible for him to not be aware of this incident. It is extremely likely that he saw significantly smaller, but similarly motivated barbarianism committed by both sides in the fighting. He undoubtedly saw men driven to do horrible, brutal, and inhumane things due to their hatred for their enemy. The advice given by Elias to Perrin in the Eye of the World to put down the axe if he ever begins to enjoy using it isn't the advice of somebody advising against willingness to do violence. It's a piece of advice given about the dangers of falling to violent urges motivated by hatred. It's an old soldier telling a young soldier that no matter how many friends he has lost to the enemy, if he ever begins to hate the enemy so much that he enjoys killing them, and potentially their civilians, then he will have truly lost a part of himself that makes him human. In his own words,
I had 2 nicknames in NAM. First up was Ganesha, after the Hindu god called the remover of obstacles. He's the one with the elephant head. That one stuck with me, but I gained another one that I didn't like so much. The Iceman. One day, we had what the Aussies called a bit of a brass-up. Just our ship alone, but we caught a North Vietnamese army battalion crossing a river, and wonder of wonders, we got permission to fire before they finished. The gunner had a round explode in the chamber, jamming his M60, and the fool had left his barrel bag, with spares, back in the revetment. So while he was frantically rummaging under my seat for my barrel bag, it was over to me, young and crazy, standing on the skid, singing something by the Stones at the top of my lungs with the mic keyed so the others could listen in, and Lord, I rode that M60, 3,000 rounds in an empty ammo box, and a smoking barrel that I had burned out because I didn't want to take the time to change. We got ordered out right after I went dry, so the artillery could open up. And of course, the Arty took credit for every body recovered, but we could count how many bodies were floating in the river when we pulled out. The next day, in the orderly room, an officer with a literary bent announced my entrance with, "Behold, the Iceman cometh." For those of you unfamiliar with Eugene O'Neill, the Iceman was death. I hated that name, but I couldn't shake it. And to tell you the truth, by that time, maybe it fit.
While adrenaline does bizarre things to people, hearing Jordan speak about screaming out Rolling Stones lyrics at the top of his lungs as he laid down fire on an NVA caravan makes me think back to Apocalypse Now.
Smell that? You smell that? Napalm, son! Nothing else in the world smells like that. Smell! You know that gasoline smell? The whole hill. Smells like victory.
And I wonder just how close to the line Jordan got such that the advice from Elias seemed poignant to him. Now, in all of Jordan's writings, I've never heard him describe combat as enjoyable outside of the adrenaline rush of a job well done in protecting his fellow soldiers. As far as I know, and I've done extensive research on this topic, he was an ideal soldier and never went off the reservation as far as violence towards a civilian force, which is why the moment of Perrin setting down the axe is crafted the way that it is. Perrin finally gives up the axe after using it to torture an Aielman in order to extract information to help him get Fail back from the Shido. He gives up the axe when his actions become so barbaric that he can't live with himself anymore, no matter how necessary they are to his mission. It isn't that he is now enjoying using his axe like Elias warned him of, it's that he's still committing acts so barbaric that they're similar in depravity to what he would be doing if he was enjoying using the axe. His feelings are very common in veterans. Even though he only did what was necessary, he still feels guilty and twisted up about what he has done. Jordan continues,
I have, or used to have, a photo of a young man sitting on a log eating sea rations with a pair of chopsticks. There are 3 dead NVA laid out in a line just beside him. He didn't kill them. He didn't choose to sit there because of the bodies. It was just the most convenient place to sit. The bodies didn't bother him. He doesn't care. They're just part of the landscape. The young man is glancing at the camera, and you know in one look that you aren't going to take this guy home to meet your parents. Back in the world, you wouldn't want him in your neighborhood, because he is cold, cold, cold. I strangled that son of a bitch. Drove a stake through his heart and buried him face down under a crossroad outside Saigon before coming home, because I knew that guy wasn't made to survive in a civilian environment. I think he's gone. All of him. I hope so. I much prefer being remembered as Ganesha, the remover of obstacles.
Jordan speaks pretty openly about his transformation back from soldier to civilian, and it's a vivid and brutal metaphor. To see this deep, poignant, and visceral metaphor degraded into kindergarten-level discourse of hitting people is bad, and the binary pacifist nonsense about the way of the leaf has irritated me beyond belief. Hearing Rafe Judkins explain that he needed Perrin to murder his wife or mother so that Perrin can be traumatized and scared off of violence into being a pacifist leaves a deeply bitter taste in my mouth. Perrin is supposed to represent an aspect of a Vietnam War veteran's life and personality. He isn't going to shack up with a bunch of dirty hippie gypsies and drink all the Kool-Aid in the damn camp. This is an awful change in understanding of the source material, it's an awful change in conceptual planning, and it's an awful change in execution. Lesser men shouldn't be allowed to adapt the works of their betters, and if that means that some things don't get adapted, then so be it.
Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment letting me know your thoughts and hit the like button on the way out. Part 2 will be up soon, and in the meantime, walk in the light.